What's good with the YouTube? You already know Big Flacco with a convict's perspective, and I'm smashing, dashing, sliding on through with a little bit of that energy, man. And check it out. This is the fourth installment on a series regarding the origins, the creation, and the founding of the writer movement by none other than its founder, Badass Snoop Vasquez. Okay, how you doing, brother?
I'm doing great, man.
You already know the routine, man. This is just gonna be strictly you. I'm gonna leave it up to you. Take over, brother. We left over there in K-Wing to where you were. You just had you and Turtle had apologized to each other.
Yeah, yes, we did.
Okay, go ahead.
And so that was that. Like I previously indicated, the issue was resolved. Of course, I knew that he couldn't stand me, and I really didn't care. And quite frankly, I did not like him either. But he's a non-entity to me. He literally was a non-entity. Although we're on the same yard, if something ever happened to him, I wouldn't allow it to happen. Of course, I'm gonna have his back and whatnot. But in my life, he's a non-entity. I really don't care about this guy. Doesn't exist. But anyways, So I was enjoying myself. Weeks, led to months, and months led to more months, and I'm just enjoying myself. I'm becoming indoctrinated with the plethora of insight that I'm gaining and the knowledge that I'm acquiring, from these gentlemen. And so, as I said, I'm asking, lots of questions. I want concise data, if you will. I want, the history of what's going on. And, one of the things that I was inquiring about is what's being done on the streets. What's occurring? What type of business, ventures do you guys have? Because, I've always had an entrepreneurial mindset, so I've always been pretty good at business. So, of course, Spider's asking me questions about, different business ventures.
This call is being recorded.
And I'm, at this time I had just established an escort service, and I had a good friend of mine who was an attorney named Angelo Vitelli, and he's the dude that made everything legit, and so I guess you could say he was a mentor of one of my first mentors, in a sense, he was a good dude, man. So I was telling him about Angelo, and he's an attorney, and I say he's a pretty decent dude, He is the one who encouraged me to establish this escort service. I wasn't doing everything freelance, at first, but he's the one that had me do it legitimately. So, I'm discussing that, and how to establish that, how to go about creating a business. And at the time, Spider was telling me that he was involved in the music scene, and I found that peculiar because he really didn't know a lot about the different distributors out there. I asked him what distribution center he was selling his CDs from. He didn't have the answer to that. But he did say that the guy that was running that was his brother, Weddle, Robert Grattan from Modesto. And I guess they had the GUN that was being distributed out there at that time,
Yeah.
And so I'm telling them, I dip and dab in the music scene a little bit, I have homies out there that have record labels, and perhaps we could do something, So he's letting me know what's going on out there, and he mentioned a dude by the name of Sir Dino, and mind you, by this time I had already heard Sir Dino, and I heard the GUN CD, which had came out maybe about a year prior, and it wasn't quality work. I'm not really into the Chicano rap, so it wasn't my thing. But I mean, they were doing their thing, so I don't take anything from them. So that was that. We're just brainstorming and sharing ideas and whatnot. And, I can say that I pretty much, for the most part, I enjoyed myself, on the yard. I liked the homeboys that were on the yard, and, the carnales were provided, a lot of insight into, the what's and whys. And, like I said, I was learning a lot. Some things I really didn't really care about, but I still wanted to hear about it. So I'm hearing about why the Nuestra Raza was abolished. That was one of the questions that I asked. And, and he was running me down about, Pelican Bay, and how, D facility was deemed no good, and, the carnales on C facility. These are at the time, these were the security housing units. D facility and C facility in Pelican Bay were where they housed the validated members of, NF, Mexican Mafia, Black Guerrilla Family, Aryan Brotherhood, and they also had, people that are coming from the main line and other main lines too. If you had,
This call is being recorded.
more than a couple years to serve, or if you've been validated and whatnot, So he was just telling me about a gentleman by the name of Montera. I guess, he was running the bros on D facility, and a guy named, Smiley from, I believe it was from Salinas, and these guys had fallen out. And like I said, I really didn't care, too much with the intricacies of this, but it was interesting. It was interesting. So I'm listening and I'm gathering, this data, and he's basically letting me know, what was happening. And one of the big things that they were upset about was that a lot of the money that was being made on the streets wasn't being, contributed. They weren't getting their portion. And so, of course, whenever you're involved in these types of, ventures or antics, if you will, of course, you have to give a percent. I believe it was 20% at that time. Because I do know that the reason why I say that is because I'm aware that, like, on the mainline yards, they would try to, get 20% of what was being provided on the yard, whether it was money or, contraband or whatnot. So he's letting me know about this falling out, and what was happening. And one of the things I found very provocative, if you will, is that there was no violence that was happening. And what I mean by that is, here these guys are, deeming these guys no good, and this guy is being deemed no good, and these guys don't, they're on disregard. And from what I was being told, don't quote me on this, but from what I had gathered, they had literally said that all D facility was deemed no good. So everybody on D facility. Now, mind you, you have norteños on D facility that are good dudes, that are just, doing their shoe turns. These guys aren't validated. They're going to be kicked out to other yards. So now they're caught in the midst of this shenanigans, But my thing is this. All of this is happening on paper, It's like you guys are literally, this reminds me of Banging on Wax. I don't know if people remember, when the Crips and the Bloods used to have CDs and, disrespecting each other, it was called Banging on Wax, This is what this reminds me of, because nobody is getting hurt. The only people that, at least back there, the only people that are going to suffer, as a result of this are those of us who are out here on the main lines, a lot of times we're getting secondhand information. Like I said, there was a lot of, inconsistencies regarding what's being promoted out there, what's being encouraged out there on the yards, what's being encouraged, And so, like I said previously, I never functioned on the streets. I was never clicked up, as a member of a prison gang, But I have always been a devout norteño. The norte was something that I held, dear to my heart, at this time. So, I say that to say this. Fast forward, a couple weeks later, I've been on the yard for a few months now. And, so everything was going, pretty good until I received the bonds and the format. It was given to me, Homeboy up the way sent it to me and said, hey, I needed to copy this and make a copy for myself. And so, I've seen the bonds, I've seen the format, but it's never been anything of interest to me because at that time it was regarded as the Hermano format. Now it was being called the Norteño format. And the 14 bonds were something that ran parallel with the format. The 14 bonds was something that was created for La Nosa Raza. This was their rules and regulations. So this isn't something that I've ever been interested in, nor was I now. And I had expressed this minutely, prior to now. So now it's in my possession, and I've seen it before, In fact, I had conveyed that the Myceli over in the reception area,
This call is being recorded.
who was active Hermano, he shared it with me. And, had told me that some of it had been revised, and I skimmed through it there. I wasn't interested in it then, and I really wasn't interested in it now, but I do want to see, what this is all about, because like I said, I have seen it before. And so as I'm going through each bond, I'm seeing that this is pretty much the same thing that I've seen before, not really too much of a change, other than it's now called the Norteño 14 bonds. But everything's pretty much the same. I see that bond 13 was different. They changed bond 13. Bond 13, to my understanding, don't quote me on this, but I believe that it was regarding not being allowed to use drugs, to my understanding.
No.
But now, am I right, Flacco?
No, that's gonna be bond number 8, bro.
Okay. So bond 13 now, and I believe this was changed, but what it's saying was that every Norteño would be educated to the present conditions and circumstances. Therefore, understanding that it was not mandatory and strongly encouraged to aid and assist.
You're not far off, but it's bond number 14.
Okay. See, I thought that was bond 13. I thought bond 14.
13 is about reaching back, aiding two soldados behind the wall, in the course of the financial capabilities and conditions of the prison.
That's what I just said right now. That's what I just said.
Okay, yeah.
That's what I'm just saying.
Okay.
Yeah, I just said that.
Okay.
I just said that it's not strongly, that it's not mandatory, but strongly encouraged to aid and assist two fellow soldados in assistance with his financial ability.
Yeah. And the teachings comes in 14 when they talk about teaching all those. Just, you know what I mean? I mean, that's 12. 12 is a teaching. Yeah.
Number, you have to be abreast of all new laws, policies, and procedures.
Yeah. Number 11 goes into the teachings of all those destined to the Pinta. 12 means about securing your household. Number 14 is about no part of this format will be misinterpreted or used for one's personal use.
Plus to get your legal studies on too.
Yeah. That's all in there. Yeah.
Yeah. So, anyways, as I'm reading Bond 13, I see a contradiction. I immediately see a contradiction because in one paragraph, it's saying that
This call is being recorded.
it is not mandatory, it's strongly encouraged to aid and assist two fellow soldados in assistance with their financial ability. Okay? And then in the very next paragraph, it states, failure to do so will have an adverse effect upon one's status as an honorable Norteño. It is crucially necessary in order to pursue, in the advancement of the elite circle of dedicated Norteño soldados. So I immediately see this and I'm like, what two fellow soldados have to do with honor, you know? And so I see that and I'm like, wow, you know, I found it very interesting. So anyways, I don't waste my time, you know, copying this down because this isn't something that I really care about, you know? I don't care to learn this. I know that this was not created for me. It's the way that I'm looking at it. When I put it in layman's terms, this isn't something that was created for me, you know? I'm a Nathaniel. I'm all for the program. I'm enjoying, you know, the insight that I'm being provided. You know, I for the most part, you know, like, you know, the majority of the dudes, you know, on the yard. You know, I'm somebody that, you know, I am aware, you know, that being likable, you know, it has its incentives, you know. And so, you know, being accepted is something that everybody's in search of, you know. So I like being liked and I like being accepted, but I'm not going to compromise my integrity in order to be accepted, you know. And so I read the format, and as I'm reading the format, you know, I'm seeing that for the most part, this is stuff that I'm already doing, you know. So that's cool, you know. But as I get towards the end of the format, I noticed that it says that, you know, our main objective is to establish a strong foothold in all pintas where one will be able to take advantage of the privileges that the pinta has to offer, such as education and vocation. You know, and so as I read that, I'm unsettled because if this is your main objective, your main objective is to establish a strong foothold in all pintas, you know, I just find that unsettling because number one, you know, mind you, I've only, you know, been in the system, in this prison systems, you know, for a few years at this point, you know. But, you know, I was 23 years old going on 24, you know, and I am absolutely aware that the Norteños
This call is being recorded.
establishing a strong foothold in all pintas. Number two, you know, taking advantage of the privileges that pinta has to offer, such as education and vocation. I'm not into that. That's not my way of going about accumulating revenue. Now, mind you, I don't have anything against anybody who's into a vocation. I think a vocation is awesome, you know. But I don't plan on laying bricks when I get out. I don't, you know, make my money mowing lawns. You know, although I did have a landscaping service, you know, I did eventually establish a landscaping service when I paroled after this, but I'm certainly not the guy who's mowing the lawns, you know, or cutting the trees down, you know, if you will. You know, I had employees doing that for me, but I don't really see what the pinta has to offer. And unfortunately, at this time, they had already taken away, you know, the college program, so you couldn't even go to college, take college courses anymore. You can now, you know, but at this time you couldn't, you know, but, so, I mean, yeah, I was pondering this, but anyways, I got the bonds in the format, and I sent it back to the homeboy up the way, you know. Like I said, I didn't copy it down, but, you know, I did have some issues that I wanted to bring to the attention of some of the homies out there. So, the following yard, I go out there and, you know, I don't know if I mentioned this, but every yard, before we did our symposium, if you will, we would gather around and we would do, you know, education. And so any questions that somebody might have had, and, you know,
This call is being recorded.
history that you wanted to inquire about, you could do it at that time. you had any questions, basically, you can ask questions at that time. I thought that was pretty awesome, and for the most part, I have a bunch of questions to ask, but yeah, we ended up having a pretty interesting debate because I'm asking questions, and I one of the questions I ask is, hey, so yeah, I noticed that in the format it says that our main objective is to establish a strong foothold in all betas. Nowhere in the bonds does it say anything about the streets. In fact, in the bonds or format. In fact, in the format, I don't know if it has always said this, but I believe I recollect them saying that they added this. They say that once you parole to the streets, you're able to live your life and determine what you want to do. Determine whether you want to, go out there and live, And so I'm like, what are you guys doing to as far as revenue is concerned, Because quite frankly, if the main objective is to establish a strong foothold in all betas, I mean, there's a bunch of betas that Norteños can't even walk the yards on. There's not Norteños in Lancaster. You don't have, Norteños. I mean, even at that time, right? We barely started walking the yard over there in New Folsom just a few years prior. That's supposed to be that's our backyard, Now, mind you, you got Norteños in Old Folsom, but Old Folsom was just level 2 and 3, And so, yeah, I find this interesting, man.
Yeah.
So I'm bringing it to their attention. I'm saying, so this is our main objective? And they say, well, it's not our main objective. I'm like, well, if it's not our main objective, then why does it say main objective, And so, I don't want this to become an argument, but I see some people are getting, agitated by this, Then another question that I asked was regarding Bond 13, where it says to aid and assist two fellow soldados. Because this was something that was presented to me in the reception area as well as on the main line. And the way that it was being presented was that you have to take care of two homeboys now. And I had a problem with that. Because, quite frankly, I've said it before, man, I'm not your fucking bitch, man. And I'm not your mama, and I'm not your daddy, and I'm not your girlfriend, I'm not your baby's mama. This isn't my responsibility to take care of you. And I'll be the first to tell you, for those who do live off their woman, more power to you. That's not my get down, though. I'm somebody who believes in being self-sufficient. So the money that I make, I don't have my wife taking care of me. I have her, taking money out of my bank account and sending it to me. But this is money, that's my money, And, by this time, like I said, I had, a business establishment, I had my own house out there, several nice cars out there. I was just doing a parole violation at first,
Mm-hmm.
So I wasn't doing much time. Of course, I, got some time for the incidents that I had been involved in during this parole violation, but So anyways, the way that they were saying, well, look, a lot of people don't keep their word. And the reason why we made it a bond is because a lot of guys parole, and they say, hey, they're going to do this or they're going to do that. And once they get out, you never hear from them again. And, that's bothersome. I can understand, people not keeping their word. That happens a lot. I'd say probably 85% of the time when somebody says that they're going to get out and they're going to write you or they're going to send money or they're going to send you some books or, 85% of the time they don't do that. Maybe even not.
This call is being recorded.
But so be it, So they're just conveying that, it is encouraged to look out for a homeboy when you get out. You know, and when you parole, they give you 2 homeboys to look out for. Or, you know, if you have financial ability, you can do it while you're locked up. So I'm like, okay, yeah. So I mean, this is a, you know, you expect it just to go on forever? They're like, no, this is a one-time thing. And so by this time, I really liked this young man by the name of Slowpoke. He was a pretty decent young dude, man. And he was a validated Hitmano, you know, at the time. And so he was going to be paroling, you know. He's paroling pretty soon. So I had already told him I was going to send him some parole clothes. And so I told him, well, you know, I'll go ahead and take care of that, you know. And that'll be my assistance, you know. No big deal. But, yeah, so anyways, Spider says, well, you know, you guys got 14 days to memorize the format, the bonds. And so I was like, wow, what do you mean 14 days? And they're like, yeah, you guys got 14 days. That's what was emphasized. Everybody needs to learn the 14 bonds in the format. And so I said, yeah, I'm gonna decline that request. He said, excuse me? I told him I'm gonna decline that request. And he says, does anybody else feel that way? And everybody nods no. You know, everybody's adamant. No. I'm going to ask this question again. Does anybody else feel that way? And then everybody's saying no. So he says, look, nobody else feels that way, Snoop. So you're saying that you're sure about that? You're not going to memorize the format in 14 days? I said, yeah, I'm sure about that. They said, well, you do know that this is required norteño education, right? I said, I understand that that's what's being, insinuated. He said, no, it's not being insinuated, it's being emphasized. This is norteño education. I said, well, you know, I've been a norteño for many years, you know, maybe not as long as, you know, you or some of the homeboys on this yard, but I've seen that before, you know. I've seen that. You've seen what? That's what I've seen the bonds. I've seen the format, you know. I've seen it. And there hasn't been many changes in it. He says, well, hold on. This is something that was written and created for La Nostra Raza. You and other homeboys on this yard have expressed that the Nostra Raza has been abolished. So if the Nostra Raza has been abolished, why has these bonds and its format have not been abolished? This is because it hasn't been abolished. This is for you guys now too. I said, well, I have an issue with that, you know? You know, it's part of me, you know, if I may. I can tell you why. As a norteño, as I've conveyed, I've had issues with the Nostra Raza. I got into it with dudes that were running the yards. I didn't like the dictatorship. I didn't like the way that they usually have norteños, you know, removing people from the yard. And these guys were able to reap the rewards and benefits of these removals, you know? These guys never really put in work. Now don't quote me on, excuse me. I'm not saying that no head model put in work. So please do not misinterpret me. I know many head models that are completely with the bullshit, okay? That you know, will lay the yard down, that have put in much work for the cause and struggle. So I don't want that to be misinterpreted. Please do not misconstrue my words. But I'm saying that in the yards that I've been on, for the most part, a lot of these dudes that were running the yards were basically heathens, man. I previously indicated in one of the videos about how, you know, the guy Vito Arriaga, you know, was homosexual and was running up in some of the little homies, you know, on the yard. And He was somebody that was, of course, I ended up finding out, having my suspicions confirmed, that he was a degenerate. He was a piece of crap. In fact, he ended up getting removed from that yard. But also I'm learning that a lot of these dudes that held key positions in some of the facilities that I've been at were actually deemed no good as well. So the guys I didn't like, I'm asking about these guys. Come to find out, even the guy that was running the reception, Jaime Linares that I talked about a little while ago, Baya from Sakura. Come to find out, he's been deemed no good for a long time. They actually, required him to, call.
This call is being recorded.
To answer up. But I'm also aware that some of the head models that were deemed no good were actually being allowed to reintegrate if in fact they, didn't debrief, they didn't snitch on someone, they didn't do anything foul, they didn't shed blood upon a head model or a non. They were being, some of these guys that were being labeled dropouts or being labeled no good were being allowed to reintegrate. In fact, there were a few guys that were previously deemed no good that were actually on the foreguard with me at this time, so that was pretty interesting, so, here I am seeing that, some of these guys that basically, got a bad rap for one reason or another, still maintain their integrity. They never went through the debriefing process. They never did, work for law enforcement. So these guys were actually being, reconsidered, if you will. They were allowed to program again. So I thought that was pretty awesome, But my main thing is that these bonds were not created for me. The Sport Act was not created for me. You may say that it's the Norteño format, but I don't buy that. I'm not going to subscribe to that, if you will. So yeah, I was adamant. I'm not going to be in possession of this, nor will I memorize it. And so it became a debate, and Spider's a very articulate person, and he's very passionate about his beliefs, and he's very passionate about this new agenda that's being implemented. This new incentive that's being encouraged, and so like I said, it became a very heated debate, and I answered every question. And he's like, okay. He's like, well, how do you feel about that? So he's asking how they feel about it. One of the people that were pretty vocal and was kind of on my side a little bit was Pups. And Pups was a very well-versed, norteño soldado. He was an OG soldier. He was somebody that had a lot of rank, with the Nuestra Raza. And I know that he didn't appreciate the fact that the Nuestra Raza was abolished, because he is a head model that did put in a lot of work, So he didn't agree with that, but of course he was going with the flow. But he said that he could see where I'm coming from. I can see where he's coming from. That was his answer. Because Spider's like grilling him now. What do you mean? He's like, well, I can see where he's coming from. I'd like to answer to his questions. And so he says, okay. He goes, well, since none of you guys felt the same way, and all of you guys had nothing to say about this, I'm going to go ahead and determine that Brother Badass does not have to memorize the 14 bonds or the format. The rest of you guys, you've got 14 days as of today, and the clock is ticking. 14 days. You will be assigned an individual maestro, and I will have Brother Slowpoke address that issue after Machina. And also, after Dr. Makina, badass, I need to holler at you too. I said, okay. So that was that. The meeting was adjourned, and we did our machine, and after that was done, and took my shower, and me and Spider went to the corner. It was just him and I, and he said, "Hey, I wanna let you know, man, that I commend you. I see that you're very strong-minded, and you're vocal, and you're very opinionated. Although opinions don't really mean shit to me, but you are allowed to have your own opinion. But I go by
This call is being recorded.
and this is something that that he was expressing, and he was saying basically that everybody has an opinion, and some people's opinion might matter. Some people's opinion might matter a little bit more. There are those who opinions we really don't give a damn about. It just depends on the person. On the nature of the person's abilities, if you will, adaptabilities and whatnot, capabilities and so on and so forth. So, but he was telling me, for the most part, that he foresaw my perspective, and he said, I respect your perspective of things. Your perception to me is very similar. Now if I was to demand that everybody on this yard memorize the format and the bonds, that you would have to do that, right? I said, well, I know that I would be encouraged to do it. He's like, no, you would have to. I said, okay, or else. He goes, or else you will be removed from the yard. I said, okay. I said, but you're not demanding that, right? He was like, no, for you I'm not. And here's why. And he told me that he had a really good relationship with a guy by the name of Corny from Woodland. And Corny is somebody who was a high-ranking Nostra Familia member, for a number of years, many years, maybe even 30-year plus. And from what the stories that Spider had shared with me, Corny is who actually accepted or pulled Spider as a canal. For a number of years, Spider was a hermano. He was a member of La Nostra Raza, and he was somebody that was on the yards putting in work, handling business, and ended up going to Pelican Bay as a result of it, where he basically was educated by a very recognized canale. And for those who are inculcated that have they're indoctrinated, if you will, and have this format and this bonds inculcated within them. That's an honor and a privilege to be educated and mentored by somebody who's high ranking. And of course, La Nostra Familia, they have their constitution. So, once they become a carnal, they relinquish the bonds in the format. They no longer have to answer to that. And so I'm realizing that basically from what I'm gathering, in a nutshell, is that Spider really don't give a fuck about the bonds of the format. He doesn't really give a fuck. And he's letting me know straight up, that he knew that going about it this way was not the right thing to do. And these are his words. He's telling me, this isn't the right way to go about this. And he asked me, and he also asked me, during the symposium, during the junta, if you will, the meeting that we just had, why do I say that I don't want to memorize this? And what I said was this. It was pretty, it was pretty clear. If the North and South has been abolished, then to me, I feel that the bonds should have been abolished, and that the format should have went with it. If now you're saying that all Northenials will be under the same discipline and awareness, then how come you don't create something new? Why don't we, create something different? How come you guys didn't put the time in and write, a new Northenial, call it something different? It doesn't have to be called the format. It could be called the Northenial platform, or, the Northenial, doctrine, or the
This call is being recorded.
Revision, And as far as the bonds are concerned, it could have been called something else. Instead of the 14 bonds, it could have been called, the Northenial, rules, or the Northenial expectations. And mind you, I'm not sitting here insinuating that I have the right to say what's to be, enforced, or what's, I have the right to say what's to be the new agenda, because I don't have the right. I'm not a part of these prison gangs, or this prison gang, if you will. But I do have the right on how I feel about it. And it just did not sit right with me. So I'm not okay with it. Mm-hmm. And if you're saying that you're going to force me to memorize this, then you have another thing coming. We're gonna resolve this by way of violence, man. I want to fight for what I believe in. I've always stood by what I believe in. I've always been willing to fight for what I believe in. And I can tell you, man, I'm 47 years old. About to be 48 real soon. And I still stand by that. I believe in the power of words. I believe in negotiating. I love a debate. I am college educated. Like I said, I've read many books, and I'm open for debate. I'm somebody that knows that there's a big difference between an argument and a debate. A debate, is brainstorming and a battle of the minds, or the battle of wits, and it's two people that are equally educated that have differences, and I've always been, one to express myself. So I've always been open for debate. I'm not somebody who believes that I have it all figured out. And like I've, previously indicated, a lot of this is new to me. A lot of this was new to me at that time. So I'm barely learning this, but there's certain things that I'm just not okay with. And before now, I've always considered myself a stand-up man. I'm a man's man. I take care of myself and those that I love. I look out for those who are in need. I've always been willing to assist those who need assistance. And basically, if you're willing to do something for yourself, and I like you, I'm willing to do something for you too, man. I've never had a problem with that. Never had a problem with looking out for somebody. That's what the game's about. Aiding and assisting other players of the game. I've always been all about that, man. I've always had a good reputation when it comes to business. So, I say that because, I meant what I was expressing. I meant what I said. Mm-hmm. And I always had my do's and my don'ts. Ever since, a young man. I've always said that a real man knows what he will do and knows what he won't do.
This call is being recorded.
Allow anybody to come in between. So my do's are my do's, and my don'ts are my don'ts. And that's just the way that it is. And so, that was that. And so, I will say that. I was being allowed to not have to conform to the bonds and the format. Some people look at it as favoritism. I look at it as authentic respect. I believe that this gentleman spider genuinely respected where I was coming from, And so, not long after, maybe about a month or so after, he ended up transferring to New Folsom because he was about to parole pretty soon, And him and I had got to know each other, so we exchanged contact info. And, by this time, there was other, new carnales that were on the yard and other homeboys on the yard. And the main line, Tracy main line, DVI level 3 yard, the Norteños ended up rushing the Sureños. They attacked the Southsiders on the yard, for whatever reason. So, we have a new group of homeboys that are on the yard. And so it was pretty good for the most part, So after Spider ends up going to, getting sent to New Folsom and paroling then after, a gentleman by the name of Chuco showed up to the chair. And so, I see they're fishing with him, and apparently this guy's a carnal, I guess he's pretty well known out there in Stockton. And I got a chance to see him when I went to shower. He's a dark-skinned dude, big brocha, tattoos and whatnot. And he was next door to the guy Weddle that I told you guys about. And so they're chopping it up and whatnot. And so I go back to my cell, and the next shower is Gangster. So Gangster goes to the shower. The dude Chuco's only been there for about a day or two. And when Gangster comes back, he's nodding his head, and I can see that he's distraught. He's like, "Hey, man, shoot your line in a little while." I said, "Okay." And so, a few minutes pass by, and he calls me over, and he says, "I got a win off for you." And so I read this letter that he wrote me, and he says, "Man, it's all bad." He says, "I'm done," And so basically, the synopsis of this letter, he's telling me that this guy Chuco has it out for him, and that he's a carnal, and he has a lot of say-so, and basically he was running Stockton, and he was in charge of this, that, and whatnot, and he had a lot of respect from all the carnales, and RP knows him real well, and RP's the guy, Richard Zavala, I told you I was really cool with, and so I can see that he's really troubled, and for what he's saying, that he's gonna, he's not going to go out to the yard no more. Is basically what he's telling me. And this is somebody I've gotten to know and I like, so I get back out there and I say, "Hey, look, check this out, man. I hope you're not telling me what I think you're telling me. If you're insinuating that you're gonna lock it up and not make your presence out there to the yard, but I'm telling you, fuck you, then you're a coward, man. I don't know exactly what you did, but if what you did was right, stand for what's right, man. Bring it to the attention of the other homeboys. And so I send the kite to him, and he gets back at me. And he says, "Well, look, man, I know that if I go to the yard, and he's on the yard, he's going to think I'm going to get whacked. I'm done." And so he, abreast me of an incident that transpired in Pelican Bay. As I previously conveyed, this guy, Gangster, David Rodriguez, he was validated as a hermano. And so he did I believe like 10 years in Pelican Bay. And it just so happened that he was on D facility. And so he was on D facility when, the D facility was deemed no good. And basically he was part of the guy Banderas crew, and from what he had indicated, I guess he had gassed a carnal, in the law.
This call is being recorded.
Okay, and he was told to do so. So basically, he was following an order to gas this guy. I believe his name was Rafa.
That was going on back at that time. People, a lot of homeboys don't realize that certain hermanos and northerners were being given orders to do things like gas and so forth, and then all they were doing was following orders, and they were getting deemed at that time.
Absolutely, and that's what happened with this guy. Do you better start speaking of which, do you ever heard of a guy named Rafa from Fresno?
Oh man, the booty bandit.
Yeah, he's a booty bandit too.
Yeah.
How you know he's a booty bandit?
That's all known. That's well known. There was issues back then. I mean, I'm not trying to disrespect him or anything because he had a long, extensive career, right? But I mean, that's pretty well known that like that's the talk of the talk, man. I mean, there was suspicion that he did something to one of his cellies up there.
Yeah, absolutely. You're absolutely. Matter of fact, gangster briefed me on this situation. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
He was telling me, basically why the North of Raza and the North of Familia had fallen out. And as you know, there's a lot of North of Raza that got a bad rap, man. That when the change was implemented, you had a lot of NR who had put in a lot of work. And so now that the North of Raza was being abolished, they weren't okay with being addressed as a norteño.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
They weren't okay with no longer being referred to as a head model. So, I want your audience to know, or the audience to know, the viewers to know, that don't get it misconstrued. There were a lot of individuals that were validated members of La Nostra Raza that were not okay with this new agenda as well. They weren't in agreement with these changes that have been implemented as well. So they just said, fuck it, They no longer were going to be a part of this cause and struggle. And so anyways, I told Gangster, man, come out to the yard. Don't be a coward, So he told me, I'll be out there, man. I'll be out there. And so, lo and behold, come to find out, I guess this dude Chuco had some answering up to do. Now, I won't get all into that, that part really is not my